Borthakur IAS Academy. Prostuti aru adhyayoner nirbhorjogyo thikona. Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 15th July 2021. Let us begin with the first article today. Government directs private centers to step up pace of vaccination. So, in the reviewed or renewed vaccination policy, private vaccination centers play a critical role. Now, we know that for the past few days, we are observing a decline in vaccination or number of doses that are being administered on a daily basis. And in order to remedy that situation, the central government or the committee which reviews the vaccination policy has said that private vaccination centers should ramp up their vaccination process, and they should place advance orders for vaccines from vaccine manufacturers. So this seems to be the second strategy or the renewal of focus on private vaccination centers to improve our inoculation numbers. So moving on to the next article, ramping up the supply. Now, center's own COVID database has shown that the weekly pace of vaccination has declined to nearly 60%. Now, we are not seeing the numbers that we saw a few months back. Particularly in certain states of South India, there has been a consistent complaint of shortage of vaccines or availability of vaccines. Now, with the beginning of this week, July 1st week or the end of the July 1st week, the number of daily doses that are being administered slipped to 30 to 40 lakh a day. Remember, this is better than what we saw a few months back, that is in May, where we were only administering anywhere between 15 to 20 lakh doses a day. Right, we are right now standing at 30 to 40 lakhs, which is a welcome sign, but not enough to meet our goals. Now, there are two major concerns with this sudden or expected slackening pace of vaccination in India. One, we have only managed to inoculate 33% of the adult population with at least one dose. Only 8% of the population has been fully vaccinated, that too particularly adults, remember. And if you go on by these numbers, it is highly impossible for the central government to meet its stated goal of vaccinating all the adults by the end of this year, which amounts to around 60% or 65% of the population. Now, that was the goal, right? We wanted to vaccinate the adult population first. Then by the time we were hoping that vaccines for kids would have been developed, and we would find some success in vaccinating 100% of our population. But the recent numbers do not show that result in the future for us. That was the first issue. The second concern that we should be worried about is, wherever you look, whichever state's data you take, we are seeing a consistent increase in number of cases. Right? Currently, United States is the country with more cases than India. But if the trend continues in India like what it is right now, currently today or yesterday or probably tomorrow, we are going to overtake US in a short period of time. So after the decline of second wave, we were seeing or we were reporting less than 50,000 cases, 15,000 cases, that is per day. Now we are reporting 40,000 plus cases a day. Mind you, even though our cases were 15,000 or below, our death rate was anywhere between 800 to 1000 cases a day, meaning 1000 people were losing their lives because of COVID-19. If this trend continues, we are going to see an increase in that number also. It is no longer going to be the case where our death rate will be below 1000. It is going to go back again to that 2000, 3000 levels. So everybody is aware that both the population and the government, the planners as we call them because of COVID-19, are aware of an impending third wave. But what requires at this point of time is two things, right? Everybody is saying that there will be a third wave. So what is the government doing to address this issue? We know at this point of time the best possible solution to end this pandemic is vaccination. The problem with Indian vaccination drive itself is supply constraints. We have 3 vaccines, out of which 2 are being manufactured. The third is in the process of manufacturing. But the third availability, that is the Sputnik one, we are importing from Russia, but not in the numbers that we need them to be. But nonetheless, this should have been done 3 to 4 months back when we were at the end of the first wave itself. But we are doing the vaccination or increase in capacity of vaccination manufacturing by the end of the second wave, not the first wave. So the past is past, but nonetheless, we have that vaccination issue. And that is the only thing that would help in ending the pandemic in India. But since that is not in the cards for us, or at least for the foreseeable future, our best bet is to make a meaningful preparedness. First, try to have enough vaccines. Second, try to have enough oxygen. Try to have enough medicines that are required to treat this thing. We know that remdesivir doesn't work. Try to bring on more therapeutics. We never talked about therapeutics in India. That was the biggest thing that I have been, not only me, many people were saying that, including experts. India needs to concentrate on therapeutics. India never concentrated on therapeutics as a meaningful treatment to COVID-19. We were so fixated on remdesivir and blood plasma therapy that we never looked at other therapeutics. Now it is high time for Indian government or Indian ecosystem to concentrate and stock up on these therapeutics that found success in other countries. So that is the resupply issue that we are facing right now in terms of vaccinations. If and when the third wave comes, the only best bet that we can do is we'll try to increase the vaccination percentage by the period onset of before the onset of third wave. And if and when we don't have that enough sufficient numbers of people vaccinated or inoculated in India, the best bet is to fall back on contingencies like the therapeutics and highly effective COVID treatments. So that is the current issue in terms of COVID-19 pandemic and the possibility of a third wave, and how prepared we are for third wave in India. So moving on to the next article, 5 years later, Brexit continues to divide. So it is no doubt that the most polarizing event that British England saw in the recent time, or the eyes of British saw in the recent decade, was the Brexit referendum, where 49% of the population decided to remain in the European Union, and 51% of the population said that we should leave the European Union. Now, the referendum was so polarizing. To this day, the percentage of the population remains divided, because post-Brexit, the hard Brexit as the British pundits call it, hasn't allayed the fears of the 49% of the population who chose to remain in the European Union. Now it has been 5 years, 5 years since the British exited the European Union, and the United Kingdom still is faltering to find a common ground to deal with the European Union. Now, whichever topic you take, the first focal point shifts to the British referendum on EU. Now, the referendum was so divisive that because of it, the United Kingdom had to go through 2 general elections, and to this day, it is entirely divided the populations of North and South. When Boris Johnson became the Prime Minister of UK, he ensured and rushed through the Trade and Cooperation of Agreement of December 2020 with the European Union, ensuring that Britain exited the European Union. Now, that rush through trade deal did not consider many factors. Now, all those factors that they neglected or were unable to solve during that trade negotiations are coming back to bite the UK in the back. Now, the first case that anybody can attest to is the fishing industry. UK imports 70% of the fish that it consumes from European Union grouping and other countries. So recently, 60 French fishing vessels tried to create a blockade to prevent Britain's United Kingdom's fishermen foraying into the sea and continue fishing. As a result of this blockade from the French fishing vessels, both United Kingdom and French have to send their naval units off the shore of Jersey to control the flare-up of tensions between French fishermen and British fishermen. Now, this is just one incident between fallout of Britain's exit from the EU. The biggest comes from the Northern Ireland part of the UK. Right? To this day, Northern Ireland, which is an extension of United Kingdom, is still a part of European Union's single market, and hence they are obliged to follow the EU rules. But there is no case and there is no clear-cut agreement between European Union and UK to address the Northern Ireland issue. So the Northern Ireland issue is so complicated that the European Union's external border extends up to Irish Sea that lies between Britain and Northern Ireland. So goods from Northern Ireland would need to be inspected there, meaning if goods that are emanating from Northern Ireland, if they want to come into United Kingdom, they should be stopped mid-sea, mid the Irish Sea, and UK custom officials should board the shipping vessel and conduct an investigation, which is highly unlikely and untenable. What would be the next best alternative? The next best alternative would be that the European Union itself impose inspections to protect its single market and structure, or do the same thing that UK would do, stop the vessel mid-sea or somewhere in between and try to conduct an inspection. Now again, that is impossible because border between the island of Ireland or between Ireland and the EU is unfeasible at this point of time because of it simply cannot be done. There are a lot of complexities that surround that issue. Now, despite being a member of the European Union for almost 50 years, United Kingdom and rest of the grouping lack trust. They lack respect to a certain extent, but that is not something to discuss for today. Remember, despite United Kingdom being a part of European Union, they didn't accept euro as their currency. They chose to retain the pound. So there were differences, but for whatever reason they chose to be a part of it, but tried to maintain their own identity at the same time, which did not work out and resulted in the Brexit. Now it is a clash of two versions of rule-based order, and it is not working for either of them. Mostly the British are bearing the brunt of it, right? There is a popular opinion in the population of UK itself that whatever the trouble that United Kingdom is facing in terms of trade with European Union is because of wanton trouble creation from the European Union grouping, so that they make United Kingdom an example to rest of the countries in European Union, so that they won't leave European Union in the future. So their perception is that, or at least certain population of the United Kingdom believes that whatever UK is facing in terms of trade, borders or whatever it is, the problems are being wantonly created by European Union itself to prevent other countries from leaving the Union and make UK suffer for leaving it. that is one issue. That is where this thing the cracks comes to surface and start to appear. Look at the G7 meeting itself. The European Union leaders who are still part of the European Union, either it may be Germany, France, or Italy, they did not have a similar exchange with Boris Johnson than they had with other representatives of the grouping. That shows that it had an impact on relations. That is the Northern Ireland issue, that is the border issue in terms of customs and between UK and EU. The worst fallout of Brexit comes in the form of Scotland. Scotland has an independent party, that is the Scottish National Party, which is more nationalistic compared to any other party in the region. They are the party that built on the principles of pulling out Scotland from the United Kingdom, meaning they want their own country. Now, since Brexit, Scottish National Party, the primary national party, Nicola Sturgeon is the leader of the Scottish National Party, has grown in popularity since the Brexit vote. Now, Scots voted in 2 successive referendums stating that they would like to remain in European Union. But because the entirety of UK voted for pulling out of European Union, the Scotland had no other option but to come out of the European Union along with United Kingdom. If the choice is left with Scotland, whether to remain in EU or pull out of EU, they would have certainly chose to remain in European Union because they have multiple advantages if they stay back in European Union. Because if Scotland remains in European Union would grant certain special status to Scotland that will help Scotland economically that UK cannot do it. Right? Whatever the economic help or the special status that UK garners to Scotland is less compared to what European Union could give to Scotland if Scotland was still a part of unified market system. So the Scottish National Party has been hankering for pulling out of UK. Right? They are asking for a referendum. It has been 5 years and every year they bring up that referendum part. Why are you not giving us the referendum to choose to stay with you or to come out of with you? So London cannot choose that. That is, Britain cannot choose to let go of Scotland. It means that if Scotland goes, Northern Ireland goes. The biggest problem is Ireland Republic and Northern Ireland. There has been a lot of call from Republic of Ireland asking Northern Ireland to become a part of Ireland. The history itself says that it is the peace accord that currently is in place, hard border between Northern Ireland and Irish Republic, is filled with a lot of agony for both the Irish and the British because the riots that ensued so there is a lot of history that goes into that Irish issue. Now, Britain cannot choose to either give freedom to Scotland or give entire freedom to Northern Ireland because it means that it will lose its territory. Not only that, the economic cost that was imposed on Britain because of hard Brexit is unimaginable. According to conservative estimates, close to 500 British companies, mind you, these are not companies from other countries, these are British companies, have relocated to other European countries because they realize that once Britain comes out of EU, the tax implications for those countries, their access to free markets, their access to unified markets, their access to simple tax processes would be lost. So they chose to leave Britain and relocate their headquarters or their operations to other European countries, which were far more willing to welcome these companies into their countries, particularly Italy. Now let me give you an example. When when UK was in part of European Union, if you want to send a truck filled with goods from Britain to France, all it takes is a single paper. A single paper would be signed and the goods would go from Britain to France through the English Channel. Now, if a manufacturer wants to send a single truck of his products from Britain to France or any other European Union country, they have to sign anywhere between 60 to 70 forms. This is least conservative estimates. Because of the complications. That is one of the things that in the process of getting the Brexit trade deal done, these are the things that they rushed through, and now British businesses are facing the brunt for it. To conclude, the population is still divided. Brexit brought forth the calls for division of United Kingdom itself, whether it may be the Northern Ireland, whether it may be the Scotland independence issue or whatever it is. Mind you, the Northern Ireland issue is also not a small thing. There has been a certain section of the Northern Ireland population that actually want to unify with the Irish Republic to become a unified Ireland. There is no piece of land that joins the Northern Ireland with the mainland of England, Britain. So they are still a part of Irish Republic, but what differentiates it is a simple line on the border. So there has been renewed calls for unification of Ireland with the Irish Republic, Northern Ireland and Irish Republic unifying to form Ireland Republic. There has been a renewed and a vigorous recall for Scotland independence through the Scottish National Party led by Nicola Sturgeon. And you have other European countries that are unwilling to form or create their own trade deal with Britain because they are still part of European Union. And the population itself is so divided right now because the British companies which used to make Britain their headquarters are leaving Britain in favor of a single market and simplified tax regimes. Moving on to the next article, India Russia to hold 2+2 ministerial meet. Now this comes on the heels of a renewal of worrying statements from President Putin and his extension foreign affairs minister, stating that India should and must come to terms with the growth of Chinese influence in Indo-Pacific. Now, India has a 2+2 ministerial dialogue with United States. It first created that paradigm with the United States. Now it looks like India and Russia also will hold the first 2+2 ministerial meet later this year before a summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now this was according to their envoy. But remember, the 2+2 ministerial dialogue was the paradigm or the idea that was developed to deepen our relationships with the United States, where we started engaging with their ministerial level representatives. And this, at that point when India was having the 2+2 with the Americans, Russia was unhappy and made certain statements regarding the same. And now we are also deepening our relationship with the Russians in terms of 2+2 ministerial meet. Remember, the timing is important. One, we have the issue of Taliban on our hands in Afghanistan. Second thing, we discussed at length how worrying statements from President Putin stating that India and China must engage. They are mature enough to engage, and they shouldn't let any third party country to come into the picture. So this was his way of saying that India must and should. Indirectly, he was saying that India should adhere to the Chinese growth or Chinese increase in Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region. So his way of saying that whatever the territory that the Chinese have occupied in Ladakh area, India must be okay with it and try to look beyond those issues, which is non-negotiable for us. Nonetheless, it can be said that the relationship between India and Russia has been sliding a bit in the recent few years. Now it is looking like India is trying to re-engage with Russia to prevent further sliding of the relationship with Russia right now. Now, as far as the India-Taliban talks, Russia is on the stance that it's a sovereign matter and it's up to India to deal with anybody in the region. And it is happy that India is willing to look beyond the curve and try to engage with all the parties in the region. Now, Taliban enjoys extensive support from Pakistan, China, and internally Russia also, because at the end of the day, Chinese foreign policy extends into Russian foreign policy in terms of regional dynamics, not internationally, in terms of regional dynamics, that I'll say. But nonetheless, expect a 2+2 ministerial meet between India and Russia before our Prime Minister and their President meet officially for the first time post COVID-19. So moving on to the next article, LAC impasse is affecting bilateral trades. Now, our External Affairs Minister and Chinese Foreign Minister are meeting on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that has concluded recently. Now, during their interactions and post their interaction, our External Affairs Minister clearly indicated that whatever the impasse that we have between both of our countries in the line of actual control is visibly impacting trade between our ties, and that too negatively. Now, our External Affairs Minister pointed out to the State Councillor, that is their Foreign Minister, stating that the successful disengagement in the Pangong Lake area earlier this year had certainly created conditions for resolving the remaining issues, but India is expecting that the Chinese side would uphold their side of the bargain. Meaning, not only India, we are willing to work with you, but you should also be willing to work with us. Now again, he noted that the situation is still unresolved. That is true. They are unwilling to move out of the Depsang Plains or Gogra area or hot springs and so on and so forth. Now, the difference between last time and this time when they met in Russia on the sidelines of the Russian meet or right now is the lack of a joint statement. Now, our ministry is clearly stating that first solve the border issue, then only we'll talk about other issues. Until and unless the present LAC situation is resolved, no other bilateral relations will be discussed in terms of trade or whatever it is. First solve the LAC issue. That has been our stand, and it looks like we reiterated the same to the State Councillor of China too. So moving on to the next article, Modi Maldivian President hold talks. Now, to give you a little bit of context, recently there has been a significant call, or at least certain sections of Maldives, within Maldives itself, have mounted a new campaign, particularly an online campaign called India Out. Now, the idea or the theme behind the India Out campaign is it criticizes India's engagement with the current administration of Maldives. Right? Now, this comes at a time when Mr. Nasheed, who experienced an attempted assassination attempt on his life, wherein IED was exploded near to him, injuring him gravely, but nonetheless he is out of danger and he is currently in UK for treatment. And it can be said that there is a lot of tensions inside Maldives itself, whether it may be the current ruling disposition or the certain sections of the civil society or whatever you call it. Not civil society, political society. Now, this call that Mr. Modi had with his counterpart in the Maldives is to ensure and take stock of the bilateral cooperation that we have with Maldives right now. So it was a call to talk about the vaccination policy, the donation of vaccine doses, and review the progress of Indian financed developmental projects that were taking place in Maldives, and also the implementation of those said projects despite the pandemic. But it doesn't talk about neither the statement from the Indian side nor the Maldivian side talk about the proposed consulate in Maldives, that is Addu Atoll, which the Indian cabinet cleared, and this led to a lot of strife in the political circles of Maldives, because we one-sidedly announced this decision without any statement at the same time from the Maldivian side. And also we supported them in the election of their foreign minister Abdullah as the president of UN General Assembly. Again, these things are common, but nonetheless this timing is significant because one, there is an internal struggle between going on in the ruling party of Maldivian government right now, and that too at a time when Mr. Nasheed escaped an assassination attempt, and at the same time there has been a significant presence or call for India Out campaign, which criticizes India's engagement with the current government and with the population of Maldives. And at a time when we announced a consulate in Maldives without the Maldivian government announcing it first. So tensions are a little bit high, but not as bad as they had been in the past. So again, developing situation, we have to wait and see what this thing entails. Moving on to the next article, SC to study court's role in policy during crisis. So one of the biggest criticism from the central government side, certain state governments and certain sections of civil society was that courts in India, particularly the Supreme Court, not even the Supreme Court, the high courts, particularly high courts in certain states, were acting beyond their authority during COVID-19 pandemic. Because the courts were accused that they are breaching into the executive part of governance by ordering direct actions from the administration. Now, the Supreme Court said that it would examine how far courts could intervene in state policy during times of crisis such as COVID-19 pandemic. All while saying that when certain conditions or such crises come to surface, there must be a collective effort to overcome odds. Now, this was during a hearing in Uttar Pradesh case, particularly Uttar Pradesh, related to Uttar Pradesh, where the High Court had issued a slew of directions to the government, which included everything under the sun regarding the COVID-19 response. The High Court also ordered the state government to provide at least 20 ambulances in small towns and at least have 2 ambulances with ICU in every village. And the High Court ordered so many things to address the COVID-19 pandemic or the COVID crisis in Uttar Pradesh that there was a lot of criticism on the High Court that who is governing the state? Is the elected executive or the courts are running the show there? So there was a lot of criticism, and there are certain times that one would feel that why are courts overreaching into the state policy framing area? Even the SG has urged restraint on part of high courts, saying that they had encroached into the arena of governance and breached the principles of separation of powers. So again, the court is taking note or cognizance of the current crisis that is brewing internally. Whether we like it or not, it is a crisis, right? You have high courts who are getting into the arena of governance and are actually asking officials to take direct actions, circumnavigating the entire executive itself. And if they are not taking the action, they are being held at contempt. So again, that is an issue that has been one of the issues that everybody was aware of. Even the Supreme Court was aware of it, where it itself 2 or 3 times during the COVID-19 pandemic said that are we encroaching the arena of governance? But at the time they justified their action stating that they had no other options because of the inaction from the executive. But nonetheless, the principles of separation of power are strong in this country. They govern our institutional structures, and this is a worrying sign when you try to justify whatever the courts are doing from whatever the reason you give. So again, it is good thing the court itself is looking at this issue, and they might come out with a set of guidelines that prevent such things from happening again in the future, and try to come up with set guidelines to show or indicate where the high courts or the Supreme Court itself can operate and beyond which it cannot operate in areas of governance. Moving on to the next article, unrest in South Africa stokes fear of shortages. Now recently, former President Jacob Zuma, who is known for his corruption, has been handed a 15-month jail term for his corruption. The moment he was handed, or the moment he began his 15-month jail term, riots broke around, or riots started happening in South Africa. It has been continuing for 6th day. Today is the 7th day. People are looting, people are committing crimes, and people are rioting on the road, which led to the start of fears of food, fuel shortages, and there has been a disruption to farming, there has been a disruption to manufacturing, and disruption to oil refining are putting strain on the South African society. As of now, officially 72 people have been killed or died due to rioting or the looting or whatever it is, and the police have arrested more than 1200 people for rioting. Now looting has hit supply chains and transport links, especially in southern provinces, and one of the worrying thing is Indian citizens and Indian owned businesses are being targeted. For the last 2 days, the social media sites of South Africa, or the social media in South Africa, has been flooded with rumors targeting Indian society or Indian civilians in South Africa. There has been reported cases of predominantly Indian societies being looted, businesses being looted, robbed, burnt, destroyed, or whatever it is. It seems that one of the fallouts of these riots is the specific targeting of Indian population or Indian diaspora in South Africa, which is concerning. Right now we are not seeing as much as we saw in Uganda, but nonetheless this is a slippery slope that nobody wants to be in. This rumor mongering regarding the Indians in South Africa is worrying. But we don't have enough reports to indicate that it will get out of hand. But nonetheless, this is how things start, and this is how things started in Uganda a few years back. So that is the riots in South Africa. That is the direct result of Zuma being sent to prison for his corruption. Thank you. Stay safe. Namaste.
Borthakur IAS Academy. প্রস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা।
Borthakur IAS Academy.